Today, we're following back up on a conversation we had last week, which kind of organically led into me saying, one of the things that leads to burnout is over identifying with the role that you play on this earth, instead of just realizing that you're a human being, a spiritual being here on this earth, and you have multiple roles that you play. It could be being a mom like you and I are, or a spouse, a friend, a child, a sibling, also an entrepreneur, a real estate professional, executive admin, whatever it is that those roles that you play. It's very interesting to see people become so identified with the role that they actually believe that's who they are. They forget, no, I'm actually a human being. This is just something I get to do on earth as I live here, as I'm a physical being here. And so we kind of lose our way. And it's just an interesting concept. And so just think about this, and you might realize this too, Haley. We haven't really talked about it off camera here, but that's why I love these, because these are real talks. I have worked with a lot of moms. You probably have as well, in your roles. And it's very interesting because I've had a lot of conversations with moms, and I've been in this position personally where you take on the challenges or the failures or the situations of your children so deeply and strongly that it literally wreaks havoc on yourself as a whole being, your self-esteem and everything. And it's the same concept, which is that they are their own person and you are your own person. And the role that you play as a mom or a parent doesn't define who you are as a human being. It's just simply the role that you play. Sometimes we become so over-identified and so attached to that outcome that we then micromanage, or we try to live vicariously through our children. You see all of those sports parents that are forcing their kids to do things that they wanted to do when they were younger, and the children don't even want to do it. This is all an actual egoic reaction that we have because we feel like whatever happens to our children is a direct reflection of who we are. And I think that relates to a lot of people. What people don't realize, Haley, is that people feel the exact same way about their business or their position, their actual position in a role at a company. It doesn't matter who we're talking to here, but they literally start feeling that they are defined by that position, how they perform, what accolades they get, if they get a promotion or not, if they become the top real estate team in their area, how much money they make, how many agents join them. All of those things, all of a sudden, this becomes extremely personal. And what's happening is we forget and lose our way that we're a human being. And this is just a role we play. Instead, we start becoming the business. And there's a whole bunch of problems that happen with that we can get into today if you want.
Yeah. So I think that it's really important just to recap that in one sentence, which is you are not your business. Your business is not a reflection. Your role as a parent is not a reflection of you as a human being.
Yes.
And we should not be that attached to it. Yes, of course, we want success and we want to make sure that we're leveling up ourselves and the people around us, whether that be our employees, our teammates, our team, our children. Of course, we want everyone around us to thrive.
Yes.
But our role does not define us.
Yes.
As a human being. And so I think that is so important. And we could for sure do a whole week-long hour-a-day series on what it is like to go from being a stay-at-home mom to being a CEO of a business, because I think that if our listeners wanted to hear more about that, you and I could talk more about that. But as it bleeds into our conversation today, tell us, Cari, a little bit more about what does it look like when you allow yourself to become so attached to your title that it starts to hinder your business or the people around you? How does that bleed into the ego, and what happens there?
Yeah. So before I answer that question, let's do that, Haley. Let's talk about that, because you were a stay-at-home mom and then moved into a very powerful role and did become quite over-identified. I did the exact same thing, but I did that in the real estate side of things. And it's just really interesting to watch what happened and the negative effects that happened to both of us, and to actually have some real conversation around that. So if you guys are interested in hearing about our stories, we can definitely share that. So that might be an interesting.
And I think that there are so many women too who can connect with that, because as a stay-at-home mom, I mean, for me personally, I love being a stay-at-home mom. I love taking care of my husband. I love taking care of my children. I loved it so much, and I felt like that was my purpose, and I still
Mhm.
feel that way. Nothing has changed in that aspect. But what had happened was because I became so isolated, and
Mhm.
I think you compare yourself to what you see on TV and other moms and roles and what you read, and you over identify with that so much that you isolate yourself,
Mhm.
and then you become so lonely. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize that I had become so incredibly lonely, and I was in such a dark place. I wouldn't say that I was depressed by any means, but I was just so alone. Even though I had
Mhm.
my children and my family and my husband to support
Yeah.
me, I lost my way, and I felt like I had no value and I had no worth.
Yes.
Even and so
Yes.
it's a paradox, because here you are, you're taking care of other human beings. And I
Yeah.
can see how, as a leader for a team or for a business, if you're a CEO,
Yeah.
an executive,
The same
what
thing
the
happens.
same thing happens.
Yeah.
I really do feel like I had taken all of my nurturing that I was trying to do for my
Mhm.
children, and I just transitioned that into caring for the executives that I was trying to nurture every day. And it can become very toxic for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so,
Interesting.
yeah, it is
Yeah, you
interesting.
do really transform those same traits over into work. And I also think it's an interesting conversation to have about you can be a very successful, caring stay-at-home mom and also then still feel like you have something additional to contribute to society and your family. And
Oh,
both of us have found
yes.
our way to do that
Hmm.
because a lot of people feel like it has to be one or the other.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. Um, and you can bring a lot of the positive traits that you have it being a stay-at-home mom to business, but you have to be careful because you can be over identified with both of them so much that now you just live in this constant state of anxiety and trying to control and needing to have the approval and to see the fruits of your labor come to a certain fruition in order to feel that you have value. That's where the
Right.
danger really lies. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, because I have literally had so many different coaching clients, and I bet you have too, or people that you've worked with in the different organizations that you've worked in, that they don't even know anymore why they keep going for the next goal. It's just
Right.
like, I have to do this
It's an
next thing.
addiction. It's an
It is.
addiction, and it's the feeling that we get. It's a high, and I think I might have
Yeah.
talked about this last week, or
Yeah.
you and I talked about it personally. It is actually a high that you become addicted to,
Yeah.
that next win over and over
Yeah.
again, and you forget about, like you said, you forget about your why. Why are you even doing this?
Yeah.
You become so addicted to the feeling of winning, or the
Mhm.
success, or success through others. And I was thinking about this, the feeling that I got when I would take care of my children and see them
Mhm.
succeed. Being a female, I see the same exact thing in male leaders and
Yeah.
female leaders too, who are taking care of their team.
Right.
It is the same thing.
Mhm.
It's just I was doing it with my children and my husband, and everything, would have to be so neat and organized and precise. And I wanted to make sure that they succeeded, that I started to take on their wins. And I see
Mhm.
that too in leaders of teams,
Mhm. Mhm.
who may not even have children. It's that same nurturing feeling
Yeah.
that they start um, taking on their team's successes as their own.
And
And
failures.
yeah, and their
And
failures, and becoming
yeah,
so identified with it.
that's exactly what happens. So the reason that they do that is because, and the reason you and I do that with our children and everything, we want everything to be perfect, is two things. I think, as I've studied this, one is that we want to prove to the people that we're working with or caring for, or that we love, or that we lead, that we have value, that
Mm,
they need us, that we're not just there and they don't need us anymore. Like, we are afraid that they will look at us and go, what are you even doing here? I don't really need
yeah.
your help. I'm fine doing this on my own. And of course, that's scary when we think about it from a perspective of our children or our significant other, but it is really scary for people who build organizations, because if everybody left them, they don't have an organization. So it's about proving that they are needed and are worthy. And then the second part of it is that they get so, they believe that it is all about them, not in a bad egotistical way, but like they have to wake up every day and do everything for their people and provide every piece of value and every lead and every so obsessed with that, because it is that value that they need to prove that then turns into this idea that this is why the success is the way it is. The danger of that is when we are so, when we take on the successes and the failures, we go on these emotional roller coasters.
Right.
It's because we are the failure or we are the success in our own mind. And so we also will make choices. When we are the success and we are the failure, we will make choices we don't necessarily want to make. We will go to work when we said we were going to go to our son's baseball game. We will show up late to dinner when we said we were going to be there. We will take a phone call at date night. We will do those things that we really don't want to do or really wouldn't do if we were in a conscious state,
right?
Subconsciously, because our ego is telling us you can't afford not to, because if this blows up, this is you being a failure or you won't have the success. And so when people make those choices and they come to me and they're like, why am I doing that? Why can't I figure out how to be less distracted? Why can't I figure out how to be more present? Why can't I figure out to have boundaries? This is the main reason why, because we all know we can make those choices. Why aren't we making those choices in the moment? This is one reason why. And then the second piece of it is that we will not do the things that we would like if we weren't attached to it, we might take a risk. We might make a decision for one of our kids or one of our colleagues or our team members. We would do things differently if we didn't feel like it had a personal impact on us. So I've had people say to me that they absolutely 100% are holding themselves back in growth because they can't afford to. They're just going to push themselves this far, because if they went a little bit over and it didn't work and it failed, it would be all about them and their failure. Therefore, they're not willing to take those chances or those risks. And that does provide potentially a lack of opportunity or some challenges for the people that you lead, because you're holding back your true potential. You're holding back your true opportunity because you're too attached to that outcome.
Right.
Because it is truly about you, not about the business. But here's the last thing it does. It really robs the person you're working with the joy and the strife of failures and successes that they actually need to go through to be a better human being, a better, well-rounded person. And we do that to our children because we try to protect. Then they don't actually go through their own experiences. We don't allow them to become the true person that they're wanting to be. I know I've made that mistake as a parent, but I see leaders doing that too. And again, it's because it's so much about them versus it is about the organization. So the first step is you have to be aware that you think you are your own business, and you've got to start identifying what you're doing potentially that is either sabotaging your business or maybe just holding it back because of that.
Oh, 100%. I agree with that. So what you named a little bit, but let's dive into what steps can someone take if they are so attached to their title, to their business, to the outcome. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, I think it becomes, you have to be self-aware, first of all. But if you're at a place, if you're listening right now, where you're at a place where you're actually in pain because you're so overwhelmed, you're so stressed out, you identify so deeply with your business. And I think what's probably happening for a lot of people is that every decision that they make comes from a place of scarcity. If you feel that everything you have to control every single decision that's made, there is a problem there. And I'm sure people have tried to tell you this before. You cannot be in control of everything. So if you're at that place, Cari, if that's who's listening right now, what's the first thing that they can do?
So first you have to be aware, you have to accept it. You have to be okay with it. This just is what it is. It is actually something most human beings go through. And many people live their entire life like this and don't ever realize it. So the good news is you've become aware of it and you now know it and you can make a change. So you have to be aware, you have to accept it and be okay with it. And then you have to make some small changes. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to be okay with yourself no matter what happens around you. And this is where people are lacking. It's why they require control. It's why they want to have the successes of others kind of be on them. It's why they want to be the one that's being needed and recognized. It's why they believe that the successes and failures are them, because they're looking to exterior relationships, roles, positions, people to make them feel worthy and good about themselves. So the number one thing that you have to do is you have to eliminate all those things, and you have to figure out how you're happy with yourself no matter what happens. And I think this is a great way. I don't know that there's any other step than that besides becoming aware of it. You've got to now change your thinking to, how am I okay no matter what happens to my business, my relationship, my friendships, if my children go to college or not, whatever's important to you, right? You have to know that if all of these things happen, you still are okay. No matter what, you feel good about yourself, you're still worthy. And that is the inner work that most people never go through, which is why they're continually looking for the outside and why they become over-identified with all these other things. Because you are naturally going to go to other things if you aren't okay in yourself. You're seeking for something from other people, which, by the way, never is going to be the same as if it were internal. So when I was really researching this a lot, the number one thing for leaders was to absolutely hone in on their personal growth and development, their spiritual growth. And they realized that as a human being, no matter what happened around them, that they would be okay. That's when they were able to kind of detach and go, this is my business. This is just a role I play. This is my relationship. This is a role I play. These are the things, but this is truly who I am as a human being. And I'm good with who I am no matter what. I actually had a conversation with somebody who said, one time that he was walking out of a meeting, and his attorney was like, how do you even sleep at night? And he's like, what do you mean? And he goes, do you know, you just signed on like a $3 million personal loan here for this project. What if this doesn't work? If I did that, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And he was like, oh, I guess I never thought of it till you brought it up. Thanks, kind of joked about it. But his aha right there was that the reason why it didn't matter to him and he didn't stay up at night was because at the end of the day, if it didn't work and it failed, he knew that he'd still be okay because he has rebuilt other businesses. He built that one. He'd do it again. And he accepted the reality that this was just a journey he was on. It wasn't about him. And so if it failed, it might've been part of the plan, and maybe he was supposed to pivot and shift. Like, he wasn't going to over obsess with the result of it because it really didn't matter what the result was. He knew that this was just kind of what he got to do here on earth. And so I'm just going to go with it. And whatever happens, happens. No matter what, I know I'm still going to be okay. And most people, if their business crumbled today, they don't know if they would be okay. That's the problem. A lot of people, if their relationship ended, they don't know if they'd be okay. And I'm not telling you to go out there and think that all of these bad things are going to happen. But what you need to figure out is, what if these things did ever happen? Am I still okay? And just knowing it and getting to the place that you can say yes allows you to be a better significant other, allows you to be a better mom or dad, allows you to be a better business owner or leader, because you're going to allow people to come into their own. You're going to take risks that will help everybody grow. You're going to put it out there on the line, but you're also not going to get so emotionally involved and attached that it's going to have you make skewed decisions. And we're already wreaking havoc on our business and our lives and our relationships because of the egoic part of our brain. And this is probably one of the most, I think, detrimental ones, but probably the one that is the least talked about because people don't realize this. They really don't realize this.
I think, and we have probably talked a little bit about this before in previous episodes, but I think it's so important to repeat this. And I think what you're trying to say is that no matter what happens to us, you are absolutely worthy. You are worthy. And I think a lot of our fear in attaching ourselves to things that happen externally, we attach ourselves to outcomes externally, is because we have a deep-rooted fear that we are not worthy. And if we are not worthy, then we are not loved. Right. And what else is there within the human existence other than to be loved? Right. And so when we have a fear, and so if we have a fear of not being worthy and not being loved, then every decision that we make is to prove that we are significant. And we don't need to live like that. We don't need to live like that.
Because we already are.
Yes.
And that's what we have to accept. So, whether you go into some just deep personal work, look into maybe some audibles, some books. Some people have just deepened their own faith to understand they have a greater purpose. Some people have come to me and said it really boiled down to me realizing that there's only one person I need to be loved by, and that, a faith-driven person, and that's God. And at the end of the day, like, I just need to go out there and I need to live out my life and my purpose in the best way possible. Some people, it's other belief systems, but at the end of the day, you do have to realize that, yeah, you have to accept yourself. You have to love yourself. And you are worthy, loved, and accepted, no matter if you think you are or not, just by being born and put on this earth as a purpose. And so for some people, that means they do need to get into some personal development growth, because a lot of us have things that have happened to us in the past, or different relationships that maybe have scarred us and have made us think that we're not worthy. And so part of this is being willing to go into those conversations that you're having with yourself based on some of these past experiences, so that you can actually work through them and realize they weren't about you. Because, by the way, they're never about you. They're always about someone else. But but we feel like it's about us. And so we need to work through that and understand that, and sometimes repair those relationships, or just get into our own self-talk and be able to kind of forgive and let go in order to move forward. Because this brings it all around, as we end our episode today, Haley, to the full circle, which is the belief that you and I have, and we know this to be true both in our personal and professional lives, which is there are no business problems. There are just personal problems leaking into business. The reason why is because those personal problems that you carry around with you that make you feel like you're not loved and worthy are exactly why you're doing the things that you're doing in business that are actually not serving you and your business well. And so you and I have had the pleasure of having a lot of those conversations about personally how you and I both battled with that, and how we had to work through those things, and some of the resources or the books or the conversations or whatever we had to do, the deep work we had to do, so that we could come forth and actually be the best version of ourselves for the people around us, and not be, you know, the person we were before that actually was toxic. It wasn't good for us or the people around us. We just thought it was.
Yeah. And watch that shift happen when you start to become self-aware of why you're making the decisions that you do in your business. Watch the shift happen. Watch your conversation change. And it is scary. It is absolutely terrifying once you become self-aware of that every decision that you're making was based on you trying to seek significance, trying to feel worthy, and trying to know that you're enough. Here's the thing, you already are enough, right? We've talked about this before. You are worthy. And it's scary to think that you may not have control over everything, but here's the reality. You never had control in the first place. Absolutely never did. And a weight is lifted off of your shoulders. I can tell you that from firsthand experience. Once you accept that you are worthy and that you're loved and that you are enough, and you stop making these decisions based on fear, your entire life will change, because your lens has changed. The way that you view the decisions, your life, the people around you, the conversations that you have, it's not scary. It really isn't. Opportunities start to open up when you start living more purposefully and intentionally. Opportunities come to you because you're energetically, you've changed. You have changed. It's such a beautiful transition. I know that we've talked a very long time today.
We love this topic.
Yeah, but and the thing is that it's so true. And I think you and I, we've experienced this. And so we have firsthand experience in knowing that it can be very scary to shift. You know, because there's a fear of, well, what if I fail? Here's the thing. You didn't have control in the beginning.
No,
but we just think that we did. We think that we absolutely did. We controlled everything that was happening. No, you did not. Right. But we just live in this illusion. So once you remove that illusion, step into your purpose, step into your greatness, and watch what happens.
It's amazing. All right. We're going to have more conversations about this, because Haley and I can share some of our, whatever we feel comfortable about, our personal experiences that might resonate with you guys, and kind of some of the things that we noticed in the shift and the transition that actually may be really, really helpful for our viewers. I bet they would like to hear that. If you want to, go ahead and comment, and don't forget to follow us on YouTube.
Like and subscribe. Cari and I will be back every week. So we're excited to continue to have these leadership conversations, but like and subscribe. Real Talk with Cari and Haley on YouTube, or join us here on Facebook every week.
Thank you, guys.